Welcome to AWS Tips and Tricks. This is Ben again, and today I'm going to talk about EBS volumes. I'm going to cover what is an EBS volume, what's the different EBS volume types, what are EBS snapshots. EBS stands for Elastic Block Store. It's effectively block storage that can be used on disk for operating system storage, similar to a hard disk drive that you'd see on your laptop or your desktop. Raw storage is presented to the operating system and can be formatted by the operating system, whether it's Windows or Linux. Scalable up to 16 terabytes in size, and there's different types for different performance scenarios. You can have multiple EBS volumes attached to an EC2 instance at any one time. What are the different EBS volume types? GP2 is the most common general purpose SSD backed EBS storage. IO1 is provisioned IOPS storage. ST1 and SC1 are throughput optimized HDD storage types and cold HDD. Now you'll notice that I've got in brackets here that can't be used as a root volume. What that means is that they're not designed for operating system boot up, they're designed for different workloads. And we've also got magnetic there, which is a legacy EBS volume type. Okay, I'll talk a bit about the different EBS volume types, the four main ones, GP2, IO1, ST1, and SC1. And I'll talk about the performance characteristics. So, performance for GP2, you can have up to 3,000 IOPS guaranteed with burst capability of up to 10,000 IOPS. Now, what this means is that you can, if you've got a 3,000 IOPS, you need a 1 terabyte EBS volume. How this works is on a calculation basis based on the number of gigabytes per EBS volume provisioned. So, if you have 1 gigabyte of EBS volume, that equals 3 IOPS. If you have 100 gigabytes of EBS volume, that equals 300 IOPS. And of course, if you've got 1 terabyte of EBS volume, you can have 3,000 IOPS. Now the limit is 3,000 IOPS. So if you've got a 4 terabyte EBS volume, then the maximum performance you'll get for a GP2 EBS volume type is 3,000 IOPS. But the ability to burst up to 10,000 IOPS. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It's useful for everyday web applications, websites, test, dev, and production workloads. IO1, provisioned IOPS, you can control the number of IOPS you want. Now, just from common sense point of view, if you've got a 1 terabyte volume and you want about 3,000 IOPS performance, there's no point using provisioned IOPS. You might as well use GP2 or general purpose. But if you've got an application that requires a lot of IOPS, then you could use provisioned IOPS to get that better performance out of it, up to 20,000 IOPS. So it's useful for when you need extra performance for, say, core applications, intensive processing tasks. Okay, the next two EBS volume types I'm going to talk about are ST1 and SC1. ST1's are up to 500 megabits per second and is useful for log processing, data warehousing, and infrequently accessed by end users, but large data volumes. SC1 is useful for infrequently accessed by regular workloads, perfect for cold storage, archiving, or legacy applications with very few number of users. If you want to find out more, you can go to the URL shown at the bottom of the screen and read a bit more about EBS volumes. I'll talk a little bit about, when I show you in the AWS console, how these different performance characteristics are calculated based on the amount of amount of storage that you allocate to an EBS volume, with the exception of provisioned IOPS, which is based on the number of IOPS you say that you want. EBS volume snapshots. In a previous video, I talked about AMIs. So I'm just going to briefly touch on EBS volume snapshots. EBS is represented by this big red box here, which is attached to an EC2 instance. EBS volumes run inside availability zone, so a single availability zone, AZA for example. However, you can take a snapshot of an EBS volume and it'll be stored in S3, backed storage, and through your Amazon account, and you can then use that snapshot to create more EBS volumes at that point in time. So at a point in time, you can then bring that EBS volume into another availability zone. So it's really important, I guess the important thing here is that EBS volumes run in their own availability zone. However, you can snapshot them and then you can use them in different availability zones. So you get multiple copies of EBS volumes run at the same time. However, once you make a change on any of those EBS volumes, are going to be different from the base snapshot, which is this one down here in the S3 bucket. All right, before we jump to the AWS console, I just want to jump back to the slide and talk a little bit about the pricing aspects. So what you need to do is make sure you check out the pricing of EBS volumes using the AWS calculator. Now I'm going to take you quickly to the AWS calculator and run through a scenario. So here I have an Amazon EBS volume that I've added. I've said I want storage of 100 gigabytes. I'm going to use general purpose, and it's going to be 300 IOPS. I can't change that. That's because that's a calculated number of IOPS. And you'll see here that it's $10. And so when you're designing an application, if you're designing something and you want performance and you only want it for a short amount of time and you want to get the maximum performance out of it, well then you're better to maybe go provisioned IOPS. So let's look at a scenario where you use provisioned IOPS. So this is $10. Let's go to provisioned IOPS. Okay, already you'll see we haven't put any IOPS in there, but we get an estimate of a monthly bill is $12.50. Why is that? That's because provisioned IOPS is more expensive anyway. So let's go 300 IOPS. Okay, so you'll see that we've got 300 IOPS here and it costs 3 times as much as our general purpose. Does it make sense having provisioned IOPS here? No, because the thing about it is that you're not going to get that much, well, you're not going to get more performance. However, if we go 3000 IOPS, what price are we paying? Okay, so we're getting the baseline throughput, which is better for 100 gig storage. So we're guaranteeing the IOPS. However, I'll show you something interesting. Let's go to general purpose. Okay, so we're using a 1 terabyte drive and we're using a general purpose and we've got IOPS of 3000. However, the price is only $100 compared to our provisioned IOPS cost of 400 gigs for 3000 IOPS, which is $207.50. So in this scenario, it just makes sense using general purpose. So these are some of the scenarios you need to think about. However, let's say we've got 1 terabyte of storage and we want to get 10,000 IOPS. Well, the only way we're going to guarantee that is by using provisioned IOPS. You're going to pay through the roof for it, $775. However, you're going to be guaranteed that performance. And that's one thing with a core production application, any application which is intensive data processing, that you want to guarantee that performance. Then you say you want 10,000 IOPS, you're going to get 10,000 IOPS, you're going to get twice as much throughput. However, you are going to pay for it. And that's fine. There's other ways to get around that as well. You can have multiple GP2 volumes. But again, if you just want that raw performance, you're not going to get it unless you use provisioned IOPS. So here's a couple of scenarios I've showed you using the AWS Simple Monthly Calculator, how you can work out the costings around provisioned IOPS. Let's go and look at quickly in the AWS console how this all works. So here I've got a volume called WinAMI test. Now this volume is actually attached to an EC2 instance, my WinAMI test one. Now you'll see here it's 30 gigs, volume type GP2, IOPS 100 out of 3000 available. Now why does it say that? It says that because if the volume size was bigger, then the IOPS would be faster, up to 3000 IOPS. When you're launching a new instance, you can actually select, let's go to storage, you can select what type of volume you want. So here's my root volume. You'll notice that there's only 2 types available, GP2 and IO1. However, any secondary EBS volume can be cold HDD or throughput optimized. Now, you'll notice when I put 100 gigs in here for a cold HDD, that the throughput per megabytes per second, because it's more focused on the throughput rather than the IOPS, you're going to get baseline 12 megabytes per second per terabyte. So, you're seeing throughput megabytes per second. And let's look at another example, throughput optimized, and it's slightly higher throughput. However, again, it's not SSD or provisioned IOPS SSD, so you're not going to get the mass performance. but you are going to get the throughput that you want of magnetic storage. The benefits of using this type of storage is obviously the cost per throughput. You're not thinking about cost per IOPS here, you're talking about cost per throughput. So you're talking about a cheaper EBS volume type. Now when I put my EBS volume size up to 1000, you notice it's now gone up to 3000 IOPS. Also, if I change provisioned IOPS, then I can actually say in there, I want 10,000 IOPS, and it's going to give me 10,000 IOPS. And then I can just go next, sorry. Yep, supposed to put 500 there. We'll just go next, and then we can go and launch our instance. All right, let's go back to our EBS volume. So this is our EBS volume attached to our Windows host. What I'm going to do is take a snapshot of it. So you can just basically go create snapshot. And you can just go create. Very simple. You can now see a snapshot, and it's been created pretty quickly because that was based off another snapshot earlier. And then if you want to, you can then go and create a volume off that snapshot. You can create a bigger volume if you want. And you can create a volume, and then you'll see the volume being created. And when that volume is ready, it will be in a state of available. You actually see there's 2 volumes now that are available, and there's one that's in use, which is one AMI test one we talked about before. So let's just to recap what I talked about. We talked about pricing, talked about what is an EBS volume, talked about snapshots, and we talked about EBS volume types. Please feel free to give me feedback via comment section and subscribe, and watch some of the other videos just to get some more tips. Thank you very much.